welcome to Behind the Lines. I'm Diane Dayton, and this is such a pleasure to have you back, Betsy, Shank, along with Snags the Squirrel, Acorn Acres Wildlife Rehabilitation. Hi, Snags. Oh my goodness, didn't have breakfast this morning, right?
She did not have breakfast this morning.
Okay, so she's very hungry. She is an ambassador.
She is an ambassador.
And
she's one of our first ambassadors, actually.
Right. So what does that really mean as an ambassador? What does she do?
So she's not releasable. She cannot live out in the wild on her own. She is okay with people. She's okay with a modified lifestyle in a cage. Most days. And it enables us to take her on educational events, to show people, you know, that the finite details of these guys that they see every day in their backyards.
Right.
And to see the wonderment on children's faces when we're at a school or at, Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or Brownies, they're just amazed. And I mean, the colorations in the fur and the way she flags her tail and the vocalizations, as we just heard.
Yes, yes. She's amazing.
So it does require special permits.
Okay.
That's not what we really aim to do. We don't aim to keep the animals. But when we come across one that shows some promise, then we work with them, and we have special permits that allow us to keep and possess the animals and then use them for education or exhibiting.
Right. So that's really what you're trying to do. It's wildlife rehabilitation.
Correct.
Right, to try to get them to go back to their natural habitat,
Yes.
right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
We bring them in orphaned, ill, and abandoned, and our goal is to fix them up and get them back out into their natural habitat. And along the way, we might come across a special one here or there that tends to hang out a little longer.
How'd you come up with the name Acorn Acres?
My husband's last name means the little acorn.
Ah.
And when I bought my first house, I wanted land. And I wanted an acre. I got 3/4 of an acre. So, I kind of mixed the two together. And I think my spirit animal's a squirrel. And squirrels eat acorns. And bunnies will chew on acorns. And groundhogs eat acorns. And those are the guys that I specialize in. It just worked.
It makes sense.
Yeah, and it just rolled off my tongue, and I'm like, well, this is what we're called now.
Well, here's the thing, too. Since I've known you, we've talked a little bit about how you have this relationship that's so uncanny with squirrels, and you've had that for a long time.
I have, and I didn't know I had it until April 16th of 2010. And that's when I found my first squirrel in my backyard. I was mowing, and I found him. He was just laying there, and I thought he had passed. And when I went to pick him up to discard of him, he was alive. And
Hello.
I found my calling that day. I found a squirrel, but I also found my calling. And I didn't know it. It took a while. It took a couple years till I got it figured out. And in my head, I had a dream of having my own facility one day.
So
it took me 11 years, but...
So when you first saw that first squirrel, you rehabbed that squirrel. Is that what happened?
did, yeah.
And by then you didn't really know what you know now.
I had no idea what I was doing. That squirrel, it survived in spite of me, not because of me. And he was released. I found him in April. He was released mid-June. And, hung around here and there. I saw him. He really didn't want anything to do with me, which is exactly what we want. That's the goal. So at least I did that part right.
Yeah.
And, they always say, once you have one, the rest are going to find you. And they did. Hundreds of them have found me now.
Right, so we know where they are, where the squirrels are.
Yeah.
So you are the founder of Acorn Acres, and you also are the executive director. You are a rehabilitator.
Correct.
And behind your name are the letters CWR. What does that mean?
That is Certified Wildlife Rehabilitator. That's an international designation that speaks to the level of education and then the level of care that we provide based on that education and that knowledge. There are 5 of us in the entire state.
Okay.
I'm very proud of that designation. I worked very hard for that, and that test was probably one of the hardest tests I've ever taken in my life.
Wow.
Yeah. That was tough.
Because there are so much you need to know about what you do. Like, for instance, you've got to know what?
You need to know each species. You know, each species that you're going to work with, you need to know what's their natural habitat. What do they live in? What do they need? What don't they need? What's toxic to them? You know, if they're babies, what do they need nutritionally? If they're adults, what do they need nutritionally? Because a growing baby needs something different. What do they like to eat but would cause damage to them?
Right.
Because it's not nutritionally appropriate. I mean, there's so many little nuances with these guys that we have to know.
Right.
I mean, there's always books, you can look stuff up, but when you're running full season, you got to keep moving.
You found it fascinating, though, didn't you?
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
I did. As a child growing up, I wanted to be a veterinarian.
Okay.
And my allergies did not permit that. I'm very allergic to cats and dogs. Okay. Not so much the rodents. I don't know why. Right. And, you know, after I couldn't do that, I looked into a couple other things and nothing really spoke to me. And I just I didn't really fumble around. I mean, I had a very nice career. I enjoyed it. And then I found a squirrel.
And the squirrel found you. And now they all seem to find you.
Yeah.
So at Acorn Acres, how many animals are you rehabilitating now?
Well, it varies. It varies on the time of year, and it varies on our weather.
Okay.
You know, if we have a hurricane during baby season, last year when we had the hurricane come through in, I think it was August, September, we tripled our capacity in less than 24 hours. We went from about 20 babies to over 60. It was crazy.
When is baby season?
For squirrels, it's twice a year. We have it in early spring, so February, March, April, and then we have it again now. End of July, August, September. So we have our spring babies and our fall babies.
Okay.
I think you've had enough.
Maybe, right? So the types of animals that you rehabilitate, you are specific to what areas, what animals?
I specialize in the squirrels, the bunnies, and very soon the woodchucks.
Ah, okay.
I wanted to, opening a nonprofit is exhilarating, but but it's also it's a huge learning curve. I know these animals. I know them very well. I needed to focus my time on running the nonprofit because I needed to know how to do that very well. Now that I have about a year and a half, almost 2 years under my belt with that, we're ready to start expanding on the species we're going to take. We will always stay with the small guys, the underdogs, the little guys, the guys you see in your backyard every single day.
Okay.
That's our forte. I don't want to do all of them. I want to specialize. I'm very focused.
Well, that makes sense.
And I think we can provide better care that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you have a website. What is that?
acornacreswr.com.
Okay. And what are we going to find on there?
How to get a hold of us, what to do if you find an animal. Okay. Before you grab the animal and try shoving food in its mouth, what you should do, which includes not feeding the animal. Okay. It talks about our programs, meaning our educational programs.
Because you go out in the community, you go to schools, and you really engage
We do.
students.
We do a lot of community work. Yeah, we are out. Our outreach program has actually tripled since last year.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of very general information just to help the finder figure out, do they really need a rehabilitator? Are they looking at an animal that truly, truly needs help? Or are they looking at an animal that is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing?
Okay. Wow. And that really takes an understanding.
Correct. That's part of our training.
Wow, that's great.
That's a lot of our training. And actually, that's a lot of our outreach as well.
Okay. It really is. It's about education, and that's why we're doing what we're doing today, to educate too. What nugget do you want us to know about squirrels?
They're fantastic mothers, and they want their babies back.
Okay.
Just because you find a baby squirrel at the bottom of the tree doesn't mean that mama's gone. Maybe the baby fell out of the nest when mom was out looking for food. Maybe mom was in the middle of moving the babies because they have a birthing nest and then they have a raising nest. And then when the babies get bigger, sometimes they have another nest. A squirrel will always have a backup nest. So they have their primary, but then there's a backup. If a rainstorm comes in and damages a nest, they have to have a place to put their families. So they'll move them. Maybe mom got startled by a predator. Nature can be very cruel.
Yeah.
Mom is going to drop that baby and save herself.
Okay.
She can always have more babies. So the first thing we're going to ask is the baby bleeding? That's an emergency.
Okay.
If it's not bleeding, if it's not bruised, if it's still warm, we're going to instruct you on how to get that baby back to its mom.
Oh, wow.
Let's give the mom the chance.
Right.
You know, we specialize in these guys, but we cannot replace mom.
Right.
There's no replacement for a mom, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Snags, it's so good to have you back on set again. You are a star. You definitely are a star in our eyes. We have another star that we're going to bring on too. Poppy, the groundhog. She's coming up next, so we're going to take a brief pause. Stay with us.
LCTV 66 is your community channel, and your donations keep us on the air and help to produce more local programs. Send your tax-deductible donation of $500, $100, or more to the address on the screen. Or think of it this way: for the price of a couple of movie tickets, you can help support your community channel. Send what you can and be a part of all that is good about Lancaster County. Thank you for your tax-deductible donation to LCTV 66, Lancaster's Connection.
Welcome back to Behind the Lines, and we are talking to Betsy Shank, founder of Acorn Acres, and we have the one and only Poppy the Groundhog with us.
Poppy is here today.
Yeah, we were talking, we were off camera. Groundhog, woodchuck, what else are the same thing?
Land beaver, whistle pig. It's all groundhog.
All groundhog.
They're all slang. The correct name is Marmota monax.
Okay.
They are marmots.
All right. Look at you, Poppy. A lot of people may remember Poppy from her debut in a Super Bowl commercial. You must want to give her a quick plug on that, Betsy.
Yes, Super Bowl of 2020. The Pops did a commercial with Bill Murray and Jeep.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was Emmy nominated, I
Yes,
understand.
she's an Emmy nominated groundhog.
Okay. So how did you find Poppy?
Poppy's native to Lancaster County. She's from Conestoga. And a gentleman found her wandering in his yard. I think he left her there for about 2 days. He did what was right. He waited for mom to come back. And mom didn't come back. He realized this baby's still out here wandering around, and he brought her into rehabilitation. As we were raising her, she was very difficult to feed, which was our first sign that something was different. Groundhogs are usually pigs.
Okay.
They will suck the paint off a wall. They eat everything. They're incredibly easy to feed.
Wow.
Not so much with Poppy.
Okay.
And we struggled. We made it through. But that was our first sign that there was probably something a little special, but nothing else was really raising any flags. As she got older and she was put out into the wilding up cage, you know, where we distance ourselves and they're on a natural, as much of a natural diet as we can get them on, she started losing a lot of weight, and that's when we discovered that she had a problem with her teeth.
And that's when you decided, and you knew that you couldn't rehabilitate her to put her back into natural.
So with a juvenile rodent, when they have a problem with their teeth, which is called a malocclusion,
Okay.
we can try. You can do a couple clippings. You know, sometimes the bottoms grew too fast or the tops grew too fast. It just kind of got out of sync, and then it throws off the whole bite.
Okay.
So we can try a couple clippings just to get everything back in line and see if it works. And we did that with Poppy. It did not work. And we were left with 3 options. We euthanize, trim her teeth under anesthesia every 7 to 10 days, which ultimately would have killed her.
Right.
Or we operate and take them out.
Right.
And that's what we decided to do. She had bonded to me. We spent a lot of time trying to feed her, so she bonded to me.
Okay.
She, you know, showed some promise, and we decided to go for it.
Well, she has been a great educator in the community for how many years now?
Well, she's 3,
so-
yeah, probably about 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah, yeah. We do a lot of education with Poppy. You know, we live in Lancaster County or Pennsylvania, and we like groundhogs one day a year.
Yeah. Well,
So Poppy is here to show everybody that there's a whole lot more to groundhogs than just Groundhog Day.
so what is it about groundhogs that we need to know? Because like you said, there is a lot more.
They're not pests.
Okay.
You know, they provide habitat for a lot of the other animals that we love. You know, the snakes, the turtles, fox, skunk. Those animals are going to live in an abandoned groundhog burrow. When the groundhogs are hibernating in the winter, some of those guys crawl in there to stay warm as well.
Okay.
You know, in the summer, the turtles are out there, you know, crawling around in the burrows, eating the worms.
Okay.
So these guys are not pests. If a predator, I know we always talk about, you know, the eagles and the hawks coming in, taking our cats and dogs. They're going to take a groundhog before they're going to take a domestic pet.
Okay.
So these guys are some of the first line of defense against some of the larger predators.
Okay.
They are a food source for, you know, fox and things like that. You know, nature, this is one of my biggest messages at some of our educational events. Nature is perfect in its design. There's a lot of people that say that, you know, groundhogs dig holes and their horses and cows break their legs. That is very true. But the horses and cows break their legs when they're being chased and they're running, you know, fight or flight. They know where the groundhogs live because when you put them out to pasture and they come back with mud masks on,
Okay.
they got that mud from the groundhog burrow, the main entrance, because the flies were biting them. So nature is perfect in its design. The groundhogs move the dirt. The horses and the cattle use the dirt to save themselves from being bitten by the flies.
Wow.
It all works together. But when anybody is in a major hurry or they're trying to get away from something that they're fearful of, they're going to forget some of the things they know and possibly fall into a groundhog hole.
Right. Wow. So what do groundhogs eat? This is some of the same thing that Snags was eating too.
This is a treat. This is
Oh,
nut
that's
fragments.
a treat. Okay.
Yes. We do a lot of our training, and it's food treat driven.
Yes.
That's their reward. But groundhogs are herbivores. So a squirrel is an omnivore, and they eat vegetables and some meat, some protein sources.
Okay.
A groundhog is considered an herbivore. If there's, you know, a slug or a bug on the leafy green that they're going to eat, the groundhog's going to eat it.
Okay.
But predominantly, they're vegetarians.
Okay.
They're going to eat the green leafies.
What's the longevity of a groundhog?
So in captivity, the longevity is probably 10 to 15 years.
Wow.
8 to 12 is probably the norm.
Okay.
In the wild, if they survive their first hibernation, and we lose about 50%.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, that's a shocking number. 3 to 5.
Okay.
They're pretty heavily predated.
Yeah. What about squirrels? What's longevity there?
1 to 3 in the wild, because everything eats squirrel.
Okay.
And in captivity, the longest on record is 20 years.
Really?
Yeah, the
A
norm is
20-year-old
10 to
squirrel.
15 for squirrels as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for you at the Wildlife Rehabilitation, feeding takes a while, doesn't it? Because you have so many mouths to feed and it's such a process.
Yes.
What does a day look like for you?
A lot of cleaning. We pride ourselves on keeping things very clean, and it also keeps our animals healthy.
Yeah.
We cut a lot of vegetables. You know, we don't do the meat eaters. We do the more the vegetable guys. So we cut a lot of vegetables. We probably spend a good 2 hours every day chopping veg
Okay.
for all the squirrels.
All right.
During baby season, you know, we start the morning with coffee for the human. Then,
Of course.
yes,
Of
we have to have our
course,
coffee. Then we start with our sickest or smallest animals, and they get their medications and they get their formula. So we go through our first formula feed, then we do our vegetables, then we do another formula feed, then we do cage cleaning, then we do formula feed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a system you have in place.
We feed, and during baby season, it's 6:10 to 6 and 10. So it's 6 a.m. basically every 4 hours, around the clock.
Wow. You are passionate about this, and that makes a huge difference.
I am. This is my life's calling.
It absolutely was, and it was
Yes.
with that encounter with that first squirrel.
Yes.
Who would have
Yep.
known, right?
Yep. And then the pandemic came along, and
Yeah.
I got to bring my dream.
Yeah.
You know, it got to come true.
And the fact that we can go actually to see you at other places, you do special appearances as well as educational things too. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you for something, what do they do?
Go to our website, send us an email. If it's something that we can reply a little bit later on, the email is best. Phones are pretty much for the emergencies, for the animals that are coming in that need help.
Okay.
And I can reply to the emails in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, which, yes, 4 hours before you have to get up, right?
Right.
Before you have to do that too. So if we do see, let's just reiterate so that we know what we're doing or at least have some sort of a clue. If we see an animal such as the ones we've talked about, whether it's a squirrel, a groundhog, a bunny, right, that looks like they may be injured, what do we do?
Okay, so there's two different classifications that we're working with here. A squirrel and a bunny. Notice if it's bleeding. Okay, get a mental image of what's going on with the situation. Contact a rehabilitator.
Okay.
We're going to ask you a lot of questions. We're trying to determine if the animal truly needs help, or in the case of a bunny, just because you find a bunny nest in your yard does not mean they're abandoned.
Right.
It means you have a bunny nest in your yard and mom is probably away. Now we will ask you, do the bunnies look skinny? Do the bunnies look very, very fat? So we're going to ask you a lot of questions, which allows us to determine what type of a situation you're dealing with. Is it an emergency? Is it something we need to monitor for a day or two?
Okay.
Or is it, nope, that's exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
If you find a groundhog, groundhogs in Pennsylvania are rabies vector species.
Okay.
That's a whole different ball of wax. The number one thing we ask is do not touch them with your bare hands.
Okay.
We are required by law to test them for rabies if there's an exposure. There's only one way
Yeah.
to test for rabies.
Okay.
And that is euthanizing the animal.
Okay.
So don't touch the animal with your bare hands. And again, get a mental image of what's going on.
Right.
Contact a rehabilitator. If you know that this is a bad situation, you know they were hit by a car, something
Yeah.
like that. Warm, dark, and quiet. And keep them in a warm space. Keep them in a dark space, and be quiet.
Okay.
That's going to allow the animal to de-stress a little
Okay.
bit. Okay.
How are you funded?
100% donations.
Okay. So if we want to make a donation, what do we do?
There's Facebook. Does Facebook donate? On our website, there's a bunch of links. There's PayPal. There's Square. There's a P.O. box.
Okay. All right. So we can find you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We
All
have
right.
all of our socials. So
Yeah.
we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Poppy and Snags have their own socials as well.
Of course they do. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you for all that you do in the community for our critters.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, we love it. And thank you for being here, Poppy, and Snags, too, who's off the camera right now.
Can we say thanks?
Yeah, we'll see you again, I'm sure, somewhere. Thank you for joining us today, too. I'm Diane Dayton with Behind the Lines, reminding you to look behind the lines. You might be surprised what you find.